A blaze that's been raging out of control for close to a month at the Grand Canyon has...
As a result of that wildfire, the Grand Canyon National Park has announced that they have a temporary closure.
Hidden deep within the rugged and breathtaking terrain of the Grand Canyon, scientists have made a discovery that has shaken the foundations of geology, history, and even human origins. Long known as one of the most studied geological formations on Earth, the Grand Canyon has been a source of fascination for researchers for over a century. Its vast layers of sedimentary rock tell a story that stretches back millions of years. But beneath those familiar layers lies something far older and infinitely more mysterious. Something that, until now, had escaped detection. What scientists recently uncovered isn't just unexpected. It defies conventional scientific understanding and has sparked a wave of concern, debate, and speculation across the globe. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. It all began when a multidisciplinary research team, equipped with advanced, deep penetration scanning equipment and subterranean drones, set out to map some of the lesser-known cave systems embedded within the canyon walls. These natural passageways, largely inaccessible to previous generations of explorers, had always been suspected to contain secrets. But even the most ambitious scientists couldn't have anticipated what they would find. At a depth previously believed to be geologically impossible to reach without high-impact drilling, the scanners revealed a hollow chamber that emitted anomalous electromagnetic signals. The frequency was unlike anything ever recorded within the Earth's crust. When access was finally gained, the team found a colossal underground structure composed of a black metallic material that did not correspond with any known terrestrial metal. This wasn't a natural cave. It was a man-made, or perhaps not man-made structure, preserved flawlessly in time, untouched by erosion, decay, or tectonic shifts. The walls, perfectly smooth and symmetrical, shimmered with patterns that seemed to pulse with a dim bioluminescent glow. Intricate carvings covered every inch of the interior, depicting figures and symbols that bore no resemblance to any known ancient civilization. Linguists, archaeologists, and historians brought in to interpret the findings were unanimous in their initial assessment. This architecture and the accompanying artwork didn't fit within any known timeline of human development. The implications were staggering. The structure wasn't merely decorative. Within its inner chamber sat what could only be described as a control mechanism, like a console, featuring recessed panels and seamless interfaces without any obvious means of activation. It was as though it had been designed for beings with a sensory input far different from humans. Perhaps touchless, perhaps neural. Further investigation revealed embedded crystalline elements that emitted pulses of energy when exposed to human proximity, indicating that the structure was not dormant but still active. Instruments measuring ambient energy levels recorded sharp fluctuations, often syncing with unexplained surges in seismic activity miles away from the site. This discovery suggested not only that the structure was operational, but that it might interact with environmental systems in ways humanity doesn't yet understand. Stranger still, the chamber seemed to warp the very concept of time. Devices left running inside the central room began to desynchronize from their counterparts outside. One drone's internal clock showed a full 13 hours of footage, while its counterpart on the surface running on identical hardware recorded only 4. This time, dilation effect wasn't just theoretical, it was measurable. If this mechanism had been active for thousands or even millions of years, what kind of impact had it already had on the Earth's environment? And more crucially, who had built it? Carbon dating attempts on surrounding organic material yielded impossible results, ages ranging beyond the limits of standard equipment, suggesting a time frame millions of years older than the earliest known human ancestor. If a civilization capable of such engineering had existed that long ago, the entire narrative of Earth's history would need to be rewritten. The conventional scientific consensus that modern humans only evolved a few 100,000 years ago couldn't accommodate this structure's presence. And if it wasn't built by humans, or anything on the evolutionary tree of Earth, then the possibilities became even more unsettling. Geologists working closely with the excavation team noticed an unexpected consequence of the exposure. Rock formations near the site began to destabilize, exhibiting signs of magnetic flux and spontaneous material displacement. Some stone slabs appeared to partially dematerialize before returning to a solid state. It became increasingly clear that the structure's activation, if that's what had occurred, was affecting the surrounding matter in ways not yet understood. There was concern that continued exposure might trigger events far beyond human control, particularly if the structure was interconnected with other unknown systems embedded deep beneath the Earth's surface. The artistic depictions carved into the chamber walls hinted at catastrophic cycles, massive planetary upheavals, floods that spanned continents, and skies darkened by ash and storms. These weren't symbolic renderings. They seemed like records, a historical archive from a time before memory. And among these carvings were repeated images of a celestial object drawing near to Earth, followed by chaos. Some of the planetary trajectories shown matched no current orbit of any known celestial body, suggesting that the builders may have been warning of cosmic cycles unknown to modern astronomy. Astrophysicists brought in to examine these carvings noticed something eerily familiar. One of the objects, clearly drawn with a tail and radiating energy, matched the orbital path of a hypothetical rogue planet some scientists theorize might pass through our solar system once every several thousand years. Previously dismissed as speculation, this so-called dark planet or nemesis theory had found little empirical support. But if these ancient builders had knowledge of such a body and its destructive influence, it raised the alarming possibility that they had lived through multiple planetary resets triggered by such events. Further into the structure, another chamber was discovered. This one was smaller, sealed tightly until the team managed to breach it using precision plasma cutting. What lay inside chilled everyone present. A humanoid figure seemingly in stasis, encased in a translucent material resembling quartz but of far greater density and resilience. The being was unlike any known life form. Its skeletal structure, though humanoid, had clear anatomical deviations. A skull with expanded cranial volume, elongated fingers, and vertebrae that suggested spinal flexibility beyond human capacity. Genetic analysis was impossible without damaging the specimen, but thermal scans confirmed a faint bioelectric signature. It wasn't dead. Scientists were faced with the haunting question: was this being the architect of the structure or a prisoner? Or perhaps a guardian, placed in stasis until a predetermined moment in time? And if the latter was true, what would trigger its reawakening? The chamber's discovery seemed to coincide with a noticeable increase in the energy pulses emanating from the central console. It was as if the structure had recognized something, or someone, and was preparing for the next phase of its function. As more layers of the site were uncovered, the level of technological sophistication continued to defy comprehension. The walls began to rearrange themselves under observation. Pathways that had been stable and mapped suddenly changed position overnight, as though the structure were alive, responding to stimuli or protecting its secrets. Attempts to record continuous footage failed, with video feeds scrambled by a kind of electromagnetic interference that rendered all captured data unusable beyond a certain depth. Radiation levels within the structure remained stable but inexplicably higher than the canyon's natural background. And yet, biological life around the chamber, microbial, fungal, even insect populations, was flourishing, mutating in ways that accelerated their development. The broader implications of the discovery reached into every major scientific discipline. If this structure was extraterrestrial in origin, it challenged the prevailing assumption that intelligent life elsewhere in the universe had not yet made contact. But if it was terrestrial, crafted by an ancient and forgotten civilization, it meant that human history was not just incomplete, it was catastrophically wrong. Either answer carried implications that would destabilize geopolitical, religious, and academic frameworks around the world. The world's most secretive government agencies, already monitoring the site remotely, began arriving with force. Access became restricted, and researchers were replaced or silenced, but the initial findings had already begun to circulate in closed scientific circles, and rumors inevitably leaked. Now, discussions that were once relegated to fringe theorists and speculative fiction writers were taking place in boardrooms and policy meetings. There was consensus on one point: whatever this thing was, it was not just a historical curiosity, it was a system, and it had just turned on. Outside the canyon, unusual atmospheric phenomena began to increase. High-frequency auroras appeared farther south than ever recorded, and ground-based telescopes picked up odd fluctuations in solar radiation. Magnetometers tracked global anomalies, strange shifts in the Earth's magnetic field that correlated with energy spikes from the Grand Canyon site. Seismic activity spiked not only in Arizona, but in geologically stable regions across the planet, as if a long dormant grid beneath the Earth's surface was awakening. Speculation intensified. The idea of Earth as a vessel of pre-engineered technologies, possibly older than the solar system, was suddenly plausible. Within weeks, global observatories started receiving unexplained signals, echoes of the same electromagnetic frequency first detected within the chamber. These signals appeared to originate not from Earth, but from deep space, and followed a consistent interval and modulation pattern. It was as if something out there had recognized the activation signal and responded in kind. What lay in the void beyond human perception had heard the call. Whether this would mark the beginning of a new understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos, or the prelude to a return, remained unknown. But one thing had become terrifyingly clear. The Grand Canyon, once a natural wonder of geological time, was now something else entirely. It was no longer just a window into the Earth's past. It was a portal to an ancient secret, buried so deep in time that even myth had forgotten it, and it was awake. In the weeks that followed the revelation of the mysterious structure beneath the Grand Canyon, the world's most elite scientific minds converged behind closed doors, desperate to decipher the complexity of what had been unearthed. Remote access to the internal systems was granted to selected institutions across Europe and Asia using live data streams of environmental readings, pulse emissions, and vibrational feedback. Despite the secrecy enforced around the discovery, the anomalies emanating from the site were becoming too widespread and measurable to contain within the confines of classified operations. Atmospheric scientists noted subtle, periodic shifts in the ionosphere that coincided exactly with the pulses emitted from the core of the structure. These disturbances caused ripple effects in satellite communications, GPS accuracy, and even aviation instruments. Brain scans revealed synchronized neural activity that suggested external stimuli influencing the cerebral cortex. EEG readings showed sharp spikes in theta wave activity, often while subjects were fully awake. This hinted at a form of conscious interference or signal-based entrainment. Technology so far beyond modern neuroscience that even suggesting their existence bordered on heresy only months before. If the structure was transmitting more than just energy, if it was emitting information, then the implications were far more profound. It meant the site might be trying to communicate not through language, but through direct cognitive interface. Elsewhere, paleontologists began reassessing fossil records in nearby regions. It was no coincidence that several mass extinction layers corresponded to geologic periods tied to anomalous activity near the canyon. The Permian-Triassic boundary, for example, long associated with volcanic activity and climate upheaval, showed patterns of trace radiation and sediment disruption identical to those now forming near the recently exposed structure. Forensic sediment analysis also revealed isotopes that do not occur naturally on Earth. Compounds theorized to exist only under conditions found in high gravity or high radiation environments, possibly even off-planet. The presence of such material suggested that the structure had not merely been buried, but intentionally hidden under layers of engineered geology. This realization pushed investigators toward a deeply unsettling theory. What if the Grand Canyon itself had been artificially modified, its existence shaped as a geological camouflage to conceal the structure? Given the immense scale and complexity of such an operation, the possibility began to gain traction that Earth's geological history may not have been entirely organic. Artificial tectonic manipulation, or even controlled erosion over epochs, could no longer be ruled out. Planetary-scale engineering, once confined to science fiction, was now a part of serious academic modeling. Meanwhile, marine biologists and climatologists working thousands of miles away began observing strange changes in Earth's hydrosphere. Tides behaved erratically, independent of lunar cycles, and deep-sea thermal vents began to spike in temperature without any tectonic justification. The timing of these changes aligned perfectly with increases in the structure's energy emissions. which were now reaching measurable levels across both land and sea. Sonar scans of the ocean floor revealed symmetrical patterns, ridges, domes, and trenches, unlike any natural formations, suggesting that the Grand Canyon structure might be just one node in a larger planet-wide system. Global leadership, now fully aware of the potential implications, convened in a secret summit under the guise of an emergency climate assembly. The leaders of major world powers were briefed not only on the site's capabilities, but on the possibility that Earth's entire biosphere had been under passive surveillance, or even subtle control, for longer than civilization itself had existed. The balance of power, once dictated by nuclear arms and resource control, now pivoted to whoever could understand and possibly interface with the newly discovered structure. In parallel, a team of quantum physicists developed a theory that the structure was not merely a machine, but a type of anchor point, a stabilizer within a broader dimensional framework. They posited that the Grand Canyon node was part of a network that operated across multiple layers of existence, holding the Earth within a kind of engineered equilibrium. If destabilized or incorrectly activated, it could potentially shift fundamental constants of reality, gravity, time, magnetism, ushering in effects that could collapse not just ecosystems, but the laws of physics as they are currently understood. The structure was not just ancient, it was foundational. One chilling consequence of this theory emerged during an experimental scan using ultra-low frequency harmonic pulses. For a brief moment, observers detected overlapping echoes of the canyon, phantom versions of the terrain, as though the site existed simultaneously across multiple versions of Earth. These echoes shimmered for less than a second before vanishing, but in that short window, high-speed imaging captured distorted figures, motionless, observing, positioned at the same coordinates as the real-world researchers. For the first time, science and metaphysics collided under the weight of empirical data. The Grand Canyon node was no longer just a relic. It was a key to understanding whether humanity was truly alone, and whether our concept of reality had ever been complete. Despite growing fear, efforts to explore the site continued, now augmented with technology designed specifically to interact with non-biological intelligence. AI systems were deployed to analyze the pulses, attempting to establish a pattern. One AI, developed in Switzerland, produced a breakthrough. The energy pulses formed fractal sequences when run through a quantum pattern detector. These sequences mirrored the golden ratio and Fibonacci patterns, but in a four-dimensional array. They weren't just aesthetic, they were structured, embedded with data. As decoding began, researchers discovered what appeared to be compressed archives. Visuals, schematics, and mathematical constructs that depicted not only machinery but entire ecosystems. One sequence showed a rapid progression of a planet's evolution, starting from microbial life to an advanced multi-species civilization. Toward the end of the sequence, large portions of landmass were swallowed by darkness, followed by silence. The implication was deeply disturbing. The structure may be a last remnant, a preservation unit, its creators extinguished by a force or event beyond even their capabilities. Earth, then, could be their second attempt, a terraformed cradle, nurtured by an automated guardian waiting for intelligent life to reach a certain level of awareness. There was another element to this. The interface itself had begun to react to select individuals. A pattern emerged. Those who had experienced anomalous dreams or electromagnetic hypersensitivity seemed able to influence the structure in subtle ways. Rooms within the structure shifted to accommodate their presence. Walls lit up with specific frequencies only when they approached. It became apparent that the system was designed to recognize certain cognitive traits, perhaps even a specific genetic lineage. This led to urgent genealogical testing of those affected. In at least 3 cases, individuals possessed unique DNA markers previously cataloged as statistical anomalies. These markers were now being reclassified as potential indicators of latent interface compatibility. As this genetic link gained traction, speculation exploded. Could the builders have seeded their own biological essence into early Earth species, anticipating a future generation that could one day unlock the system? If so, then humanity's existence was not random evolution, but part of a directed experiment, perhaps even a reclamation mission. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on scientists' shocking Grand Canyon discovery and what might happen next? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.